Blacks in Technology.
Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology.
What's going on, everyone? Thank you for tuning in to the Blacks in Technology Bit Tech Talk podcast. Our topic for this podcast is Women in Tech, how to get the position and pay you deserve. And helping us to explore this topic more in depth is our guest, Kanika Tolver. Kanika is a career coach, consultant, speaker, and self-professed tech geek. She is also the author of the acclaimed title, Life Rehab, Don't Overdose on Pain, People, and Power. Kanika, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we always like to start off with, finding out a little bit more about our guests. And can you tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of, where you're from, what your education is in?
Sure. My name is Kanika Tolver. I am from the Washington, D.C. area, born and raised in Washington, D.C. We call it the DMV. I was pretty much educated. Are you were?
Yeah, just earlier this week I was there.
Oh, okay. Cool, yeah. Cool.
Nice.
I was educated in Prince George's County, Maryland. Went to Bowie State University for a computer science degree, so my background is in computer science. I spent majority of my career in the federal government IT space.
Okay.
I worked in several different agencies as a federal employee and climbed up the ladder to, get to being a project manager at the age of 26 and 27, and then I left the government probably around 2014 to actually go into private sector. So I went to go work for Deloitte and work with some other consulting firms, working directly still with the government. I was just on the opposite side. I spent, 15 years in the industry focused on developing websites, leading projects focused on mobile app development and just a lot of, end-to-end QA testing for different, internal legacy systems that the government is still maintaining. Right now, I'm transitioning into being an entrepreneur. I have my own digital consulting company, and then I also do career coaching. And I primarily focus on helping African Americans, be able to, acquire the salary and jobs that they desire based on my past experiences.
Very cool, and I like that you have a pretty pretty broad talent range there. You go from computer science and tech, and now you're doing that as well as career coaching. So I think that's very cool.
Yeah, I'm still doing tech. I have a company called Brand DMV. It's Brand Digital Mobile Visuals. I focus on developing mobile apps and websites and branding for companies. We're actually transitioning a little bit, and we're moving forward into focusing strictly on digital transformation and doing digital strategy and cloud and big data. So we're kind of actually moving away from just doing websites and apps and kind of moving forward into doing more strategy consulting and agile coaching and things like that. Very,
very nice and definitely much needed. I work at a educational software company, and we go through the same thing of agile methodologies, and so it's very much needed.
I'm extremely passionate about agile because I'm a certified Scrum Master, and I'm thinking about getting some more certifications because I want to actually be either a trainer or coach. So I want to go into organizations. Since I already do career coaching, I still want to do some type of tech consulting and coaching. So I want to go into organizations that really don't know how to, be agile, mature, and maybe they're coming from waterfall, and kind of get them caught up to speed. So I'm actually in the process of pitching a couple of presentations and trainings for federal government and for private sector organizations that need help with that transition.
So, in your experience in that, have you found it to, kind of like the waterfall methodology to be more prevalent in government sector or the private sector?
I learned more about Agile when I was actually at Deloitte. So when I was working in the government, we primarily was using waterfall or somewhat of a hybrid. Like one agency at the Department of Labor, I was a federal employee, and that was like my first job out of college, and I was a SaaS developer, and I was focused on, pretty much doing, I don't know if you're familiar with the RUP at the time was kind of popular. It's the iterative methodology, and then when I moved on to other agencies, they were still kind of using the waterfall methodology, and this was kind of back prior to like 2014.
Right.
And then when I got in the private sector and I left to go to work for Deloitte, that's when I got introduced into Agile, and then I just started to read up on it. I got really passionate about it. And I wasn't doing as much programming anymore. I was more so a functional senior consultant. So I would say that the private sector is really the leading force of bringing Agile to government. The government itself is still trying to catch up. I think, in the last year or two, they've pretty much tried to move forward. But I think private sector is actually the ones that are introducing the government to that, and also introducing an Agile acquisition and procurement process that is also new to government as well.
Interesting. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about career coaching and get into that side of things. But first off, I want to ask you, why is because I know you mentioned in your bio about personal branding. Why do you think personal branding is important, especially nowadays?
At first I think, when you come out of college, you really don't even know much about personal branding. And I started to read a lot of books, probably around the time that I was switching over from being a Fed to being a federal employee to being a consultant. And I really think personal branding, what I've learned over the last maybe 5 years, is that it really allows you to figure out, what is a good fit for you as a person. So, personality fit, it helps to identify, company culture fit. It helps to identify, what type of team dynamics that you like, because if you're in tune with yourself, right, you can basically brand yourself enough to figure out what organization works well for you career-wise. And I started to really become really comfortable, like towards the end of my 20s, really started to become comfortable with the idea of, hey, I'm a cool geek, in some regards, I'm a corporate rebel. In some regards, I'm a career dropout, which is the entrepreneurial spirit of me. But all of those things make up who I am, and it doesn't take away from my knowledge or my subject matter expertise that I can give to an organization. But when I come in, I'm Kanika, so I'm the young lady that's sometimes on a team where there's not a lot of, African Americans. But what I found out is that people really like it when you're authentic, and a lot of people attach to me even though they're other races or from other, backgrounds. So I think it's important to be yourself, but also to show that you're sharp and smart at the same time.
Yeah, I certainly agree with you there. I mean, even with me, I've been in IT for over 15 years, and it actually took me a while to become, being more comfortable with myself, right, and showing that authentic side of myself, and really, to put it bluntly, not really giving an F about,
right, exactly.
Yes, I mean that's and that's
that's where I'm at, yeah.
Right, that's the real part of it. I stopped caring about how people perceived me, right, and showing all different sides of me, and I tell you what, a lot of that mainly came from is just being a part of the diversity and inclusion efforts with Blacks in Technology, and kind of seeing the the contrast between kind of how Black people move in within this sector, and kind of how white people move. And not saying that, hey, you have to move like them, but I started noticing things. For instance, like I remember seeing reading an article where they were talking about a bunch of PhDs, or a bunch of people with PhDs in computer science, right? And they happened to be all white men and women. And looking at that, the photograph of, I don't know, there were probably 9 or 10 of them. You would never think well, you probably would never know that they had their PhDs in computer science, because they just looked like they were having fun. They were wearing shorts. They were making goofy faces and things like that. So that was one of the other things. The other thing was there was a gentleman by the name of Jono Bacon, and he at the time he was the leader of, or I guess the lead community advocate or something like that for Ubuntu, right? And I looked up his wiki page, and I seen that he was part of a thrash metal band, and I'm looking like, really? Jono Bacon was, and I looked at it, just reading through his wiki page, and I'm just like, now this is cool. Like now, I started saying, hey, I'm bringing all the barriers down. I'm showing my true self. It doesn't matter. So like when I go in and I go in to speak to students, or I go in to speak to anybody for that matter, I let them know that, hey, I love hip hop, I love comics, I love Linux, I love this, I love that. And I don't hold any of that stuff back for fear that somebody might perceive me a certain way, because I'm looking at all these other people like they don't mind, so why should I, right?
Yeah.
So, excellent.
And I totally agree with you. When I go and speak at organizations or schools, or go back to my old high school, or I went to a predominantly African American high school, and I went to a HBCU. What I think, when you become really in tune with yourself, it's the cool way, because I think when you get out of college, you're trying to like do it the corporate way, or you conform to think in your mind that you have to do things the way that it's just like one way to do it, and you have to not be yourself. And I think working for big corporations and organizations, your mindset, you can be brainwashed to believe that you have to be a person that talk this way, dress this way, act this way.
Right.
But I feel like, there's a time and place to do those things, and I think of personal branding, I can get in a room and I can speak really, really eloquently and intelligent and use big words, but then there's times that I'm just going to a Jay-Z or Nas concert and I'm just being my normal self, or I'm listening to Linkin Park, or I'm looking, I just think at the end of the day, what I've realized is that personal branding starts with something that you have to identify with, and I think people get caught up in making a lot of money in tech, and I think that they feel like in order to be included that they have to go with the flow, but you really could be the flow depending on what type of organization you're trying to like get into.
Yeah, I like that. I like that statement. You can be the flow. What I like particularly about that is that when you speak to especially young students who might think that they need to act a certain way, or they feel like they have to lose their identity in order to be in tech, right? And being able to tell them like, hey, you can do this, you can do that, and this is just all a part of who you are as a person, and you can bring that, your authentic self, to this industry and make it for a more diverse and a better industry overall.
Yeah, and I think you're so right about the part of like, I think the young mindset of the young people today is that, science and math and all those things aren't cool. So, what I try to do is be very relatable, and I try to bring technology at their level and talk about the apps that they use, and talk about being the consumer of an iPhone or Android phone, and letting them know that really the people that are really the superstars in the world are really, people that are doing technology, and let them know how much money you can make and what type of lifestyle you can have. I think if you kind of like bring that to the forefront of the benefit of it, it brings our young people, minority young people, they're more buying into that, because they still want to have the big car, the big house, because they idolize rappers and things like that. But really, will.i.am and a lot of people, that are into tech, and even Nas that has invested a lot of his money into tech companies, they're showing people that this is the way. This is the cool way.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I don't. There's no shame in my game going to talking to students and telling them what I make. Right, like, hey.
Oh yeah, they want to know. They want to know. Right. So I mean, I let them know, like, this is what. I think my highest salary in the industry has been 145. So they may say, well, how much is that every 2 weeks? And then when I tell them it's almost $4,000, then they get kind of excited, right? Because they thinking in their mind like, oh, you're probably only getting $1,000, because they don't translate salary to hourly like we do. But once they see that and they hear that, they're like, wow. I can make 6 figures, you know what I mean? And then it's like, then they're happy and excited to want to know more about the field.
Right, I totally agree. Totally agree. So, you know, in your bio, you mentioned you always love helping people to create their own epic lives. Tell us, you know, what does that mean? What is someone's epic life?
I love the word epic, so I just always use it. Like, it's one of my favorite words. Like, when I get excited about something, I'm like, wow, this is epic. Like, this is cool. 'Cause you think epic is like iconic. Like, it's amazing. It's awesome. It's like nothing you felt or seen before. Yep. So for me, when I do my career coaching, I like to have a lot of enthusiasm and excitement, and I like people to bring their goals, and I like them to bring, you know, even if it's far-fetched, you know, I think, you know, we kind of stay in these boundaries of being so realistic. And I think really when someone's epic life is allowing them to make a dream or an idea come out through the use of their career. Or maybe they basically was only making $50,000, but now some of them are getting jobs making $80,000, or now they're getting a security clearance. So whatever they thought was unrealistic to them, I want to make it epic for them to let them know that it's 100% realistic, but these are the steps to get there.
Love it. I love it. Love it. So let's take a step back. How did you actually get involved in career coaching, and kind of how did that and you having a tech background, I know how that kind of evolved into you career.
That's a good question.
In tech industry. Yeah, tell us.
Yeah, because actually, when I was younger, like, you know, all my friends would come to me. I would just write people's resumes, and it just became natural to me to like write a resume and to tell a story, and like they'll get a job. Like, they couldn't get a job before, and then they'll like say, "Can you write my resume for me?" And I'll charge like $50, $100 at this point in time, like back, you know, like years ago. And then I started to like get passionate about saying, "Wow, these people are actually getting jobs. Like, I could actually do this and make money doing it." And then what I started to see in our community, we never really took advantage of career coaches. I always, when I Googled career coaches online, I always saw older white men and women that were like, you know, they were doing executive career coaching, or they had been in the industry for like 30 years, and they basically was giving back. So I was like, wow, I think I could do this, because I've been in the industry for 10 years. I've had a lot of career heartbreaks. I think not only could I write resumes, but people come to my office face-to-face, and we have like these one-on-one coaching sessions, and they're talking about all of their bad experiences. And by me having all these bad career experiences as a woman of color, and just as a woman, it just was like, wow, I could really, really do this. And probably I would say 80% of my clientele is black women. So it just kind of felt natural, because I could feel that they were going through, like, you know, workplace bullying.
Right.
These people were discriminated against. These people were getting lowballed on their salary. And I kind of was just like, kind of more so a rebel professional. And I kind of just broke the rules, or asked the right questions so I could break the rules. And then I just started reteaching those type of things that I learned over the last 10, 12 years to other young people, or some of my clients, they're older. They're like Gen Xers, or they're baby boomers. So, you know, just helping people step out of that fear zone.
So you mentioned something about earlier about you know, black men and women not having career coaches, or not even seeking them out. Why do you think that is? Do you think it's a cultural thing around, like, maybe people not wanting to be in your business, or why do you think that's a thing?
I think now there's a lot more, you know, people my age that are doing career coaching. But I think probably that's only kind of evolved over the last 5 to 7 years. You know, everybody's a coach now. Everybody's a life coach, career coach, health coach. I just think this is an overly saturated market. I think for our people, I think this is a few things that I've observed. Been doing this for a couple of years. A lot of us don't feel that we should pay for that type of service. We feel like we should go and buy some red bottoms or a Louis Vuitton bag, but we don't want to pay for services for somebody to really give them the roadmap. Like when I coach, these people are getting into Microsoft, they're getting into Bank of America, they're getting into federal agencies. So I don't coach them just to have a nice resume and I send you on your way. I think for what I've noticed, a lot of them don't want to pay for the service. A lot of them don't want to actually be invested in the program, and they don't want to do their part in the work. They want a lot of us want that we feel like we want people to just give us a promotion, or we feel like we want to just get a new job, and we don't want to actually put in the work to understand how to brand, market, and sell ourselves. We don't, as African Americans, look at ourselves as products. We just look at ourselves as, or I look at myself as a little business even when I'm working for a business.
Right.
They look at themselves as employees. Yes. And until we change the mindset of African Americans and let them see that, hey, you have a brand, you have a personal brand, a career brand, and you have to market it to get the money and get the promotions that you want.
I totally agree. I mean, even with dealing with the bit community, I've come across people where I've actually done a little bit of this, and I'm not saying I'm like some type of expert, career coach, but I've kind of been around. I've been around the block a few times, and I can lend some of my experience to helping others, right? And so. I just like to tell people, like, especially when it comes to dealing with recruiters and dealing with potential employers. I tell people you have to find out what you have to first know that you're valuable and that you are a valued service. Like when you actually get hired on. To a job. I mean, you basically have a contract between you and the company. You're providing them a service, right?
Exactly.
And you have to look at it like that. You can't look at it as you being kind of like some subordinate. You have to look at this as that this is a mutual beneficial agreement between you and the company. And when you start really learning that and start being able to implement that type of mindset, that's when you start really valuing yourself and knowing your value. So I definitely agree with everything you said.
Yeah, and I think it's more so I don't know for you. I mean, I have a baby boomer set of parents. I also think, baby boomer parents, they kind of was in jobs where they really didn't have options.
Right.
And, they encouraged our generation to get educated so we could have options. But I think for me, I coach even college students, and some of their parents are Gen Xers. I don't think that the translation of the information of the things that, our generation probably will do a lot better because we've been afforded a whole lot of opportunities and options. I think some of that didn't translate when we were getting parenting by our parents. I don't think that they explained that to us because they didn't have any options. So they basically, my mom and my dad, some of these people worked at the same job for 20 years, 25 years. You know what I mean? So they don't even know anything about branding and marketing and selling yourself because they didn't have, skills or education maybe to do that. So maybe that's why our community isn't really into career coaching or into, career development because our parents didn't know nothing about it.
Right. I can see that. I can definitely see that happening. Or that being the case. So let me ask you this: Are there, and I'm guessing that you've done career coaching for people outside the tech industry as well, or has it just been specific to tech?
It's been both. So I do all career paths. So I mean it's a lot easier to do my tech people, of course. Because I know the technology, I know the lingo, I know all the acronyms, I know all the certifications. Right. But yes, I do coach federal employees, private sector employees, nonprofit employees, and these people are admin, HR people, communications, tech people, educators. I've done, teachers. So it varies. I mean, it's probably been over like maybe close over to 200 plus clients, and they're all different industries.
So are there any challenges specific to the tech industry? And I'm asking this because I know just from dealing with tech folks how tech folks can be, right? We're some of us, and this is not all tech folks, of course, but some of us are know-it-alls, or we feel like we know it all, and taking advice from somebody else, or being told, because I'm guessing when you do your life coaching, there are some kind of hard truths that you have to kind of get out of somebody, right? And sometimes people don't like either divulging that information, or they don't like hearing that information about themselves, right? And so you compound that with somebody working in tech, and sometimes that may prove to be challenging. Yeah,
it's somewhat challenging. A lot of the tech professionals that come to me, there are two types. They're those that actually been in the industry for a while. They just got a crappy resume, and they just want to take things up a notch. And maybe they want to get in. They may be making 100, but they want to get into the mid 100s. And then I have the people that are kind of new in the industry. They may fresh out of college, or maybe they only got less than 5 years. They're a little bit easier to coach because they actually they know that they want to make six figures, but maybe they just only make 65 or 70 right now. So they're a little bit more in tune to listen. Some of the things that I think that I'd be hard on my tech people about is keeping up with your skills. I tell them, there's no way that you actually going to be able to keep up with tech. You get paid to learn in tech. And if you're not in it to learn and be a constant learner, you're in the wrong field, because this thing changes every day. So I really try to enforce that a lot. I mean, you get paid to learn. That's what you get paid to do.
Out there. Okay.
So I think those that don't want to get certifications, they don't want to do continuing education, they don't want to keep their skills up, or they may be working in, I have a client now, he's working in the federal government space, and he feels like he's not being challenged, or he doesn't feel like he's getting, the visibility that he needs. I tell these people to pull up. You have to do what you got to do and move on. If you want to do, this particular client wants to do AWS. His organization doesn't want to, move to the cloud. You're going to just sit there and not move into the cloud when that's the new wave. So he's actually, moving to another job now, and he's going to be doing, more AWS type work. So I have to be very realistic with them, because I know that we're always kind of even though we could be really, really smart, even within in the field, they don't look at you that way. I mean, the other races don't look at you as smart as they are. You have to kind of be on your P's and Q's all the time in that industry, as being an African American.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Let me ask you this: how often do you run across people that feel some sense of loyalty to a company? You have to coach them out of that.
All the time.
All the time. Okay.
All the time, especially.
Speak on that a little bit.
Especially my federal sector people, because their loyalty is based off of stability. See, let's talk about there's two types of people, I think, in the career space. There are people that saying, at any means necessary, I'm gonna get this money. I was the person when I was working. If I gotta stay at this job a year or 2 years, I'm gonna get what I can get. I'm gonna absorb everything that I can get. I'm gonna get them to pay for this. I'm gonna get them to do this. But I was always more have a hustler mindset. So I always what can I get out of this situation that can level me up for the next situation? And then you have the other people that are this is kind of where I've been for the last 5 years or 10 years, or I like my commute. They're in their comfort zone. But then they're also on the flip side complaining about not getting upper mobility, not getting, they hate their job, right? But then they're loyal to the stability of the fact that they know that they could have this job. So I think for me, I'm so hard and so blunt with that I think at the end of the day, the company going to always get theirs. Are you going to get yours? That's my motto.
I like it.
That's my motto. So I have to sometimes make people feel less fearful, because I think more so that's fear that's stopping you from progression, most of the time, most naturally, we all want to progress.
Right.
But I don't think everybody wants to get out of their comfort zone of like learning something new or going into a new organization, meeting new people. Some people are just scared to interview. You'd be surprised. Some people, they've been on a job for 10 years and they like, I don't know what to do on an interview.
I like that you said that. So you've basically found that people, they're not really loyal. They're just fearful of doing something different.
Yes. And I think since my clientele is like half government consultants, private sector consultants, DC market, we got a lot of tech work right here just in the government alone. So a lot of these private sector tech companies, they directly win millions and billion-dollar contracts with the federal government. And then, I have my federal people. The great thing about being in the tech industry in the DC market is a lot of my tech professionals, they have security clearances, and that's like equity. That's like, if you have a secret clearance or a top secret clearance, you basically can get any job you want because it just kind of means like you're more marketable to work in any environment. Whereas my federal IT people, they just can't jump from job to job because they are under different rules and regulations that are mandated by the government. So there could be a hiring freeze, there could be a cancellation of the job, there could be no pay increases. Like in the Obama administration, there was no pay increases. There's just different environments. But then I have some people that will email me and be like, wow, your story about leaving the government and going to the private sector, I love it, but I just don't think I could do it. But they want to leave, but they can't do it. They're scared.
Right. So that's fear.
Yep. Because they've been getting a paycheck every 2 weeks, and in private sector, it's kind of like, it doesn't mean they're going to get laid off or anything like that. But people look at private sector as it's not stable. And once I got on the other side, I'm like, these people are crazy. Like, this is like way more money, way more. You can learn more. You can get more. To me, I just felt like it was just a better opportunity for a hungry hustler person to be in private sector.
Got you. So let me ask you, going back to career coaching, what does it take for a person to be coachable or receive coaching?
I think it takes an open mind. I think it takes also for them to do their part. I can give you the information all day long, but if you're not willing to actually, follow up with the actions and the homework assignments, it's not going to work for you. I think when people come to my face-to-face coaching sessions, I think it takes for you to just be very, very honest and vulnerable. And sometimes you'll be surprised in career coaching sessions, people will start talking about personal things. A lot of personal issues block people from progression within their career. It could be a relationship, it could be their children, it could be a bad financial hardship or situation. So sometimes we dabble into personal goals and personal challenges, and I think being very open and upfront with me about those things, it helps me to get you in a right position that's going to be able to help you pay that credit card off, or help you be able to support single dads and single moms. They really need that extra money. So I think that's one of the things that I'm career coaching, is you have to be very honest about your situation.
Excellent. And have you ever had anyone to kind of go against the coaching that you've given them, and how did that turn out for them?
So I had a client recently this is a tech client, simply talking about tech, came to see me in January, wanted to transition into, doing some kind of a mashup of like, PR and tech and communications and tech, because, like everything's kind of like marketing and social media and PR and, all that stuff you can do with tech now. Had 2 different job offers. He came to my session and he followed all the, steps that I gave him to do. So say for instance, you have somebody that actually can get paid $85,000 to be a leader or somewhat like a project manager or leader, but then he had another offer that was like over 100-some thousand just to be a specialist, right? Mm-hmm. But really wants to take the job that's $85,000 because that's going to give him more flexibility to be a leader and to learn and have visibility, but at the same time needs to be focused on counter-offering at this point, because why is the other tech companies like Grant Thornton and Raytheon, those are the two companies that kind of like big out here. Mm-hmm. Why would you want to get paid less for more responsibility as a tech lead or versus being a specialist?
Right. I
tell people, don't fall into the mindset of caring about the job title, because you're going to be swamped with work getting paid $85 when you could have got like, I don't know, it was like $110, $115, I don't know what it was. But anyway, I was just basically trying to coach him and let him know that if you're taking the $85,000 position, take it because you're really connected and passionate to the job and the responsibility and what you're going to be doing. And if you're not so crazy about the specialist position, then that's fine too. But for me, I don't know if that made a lot of sense. I would get paid for less responsibility, and I would get paid for less responsibility, and then I would get paid more to have little responsibility. I just wasn't understanding that, and so we kind of coached him. I coached him through like the salary negotiation process, but I still think he ended up wanting to take the $85,000 job. So
interesting.
I think we as African Americans, I think we get caught up on titles and responsibility.
Uh-huh.
And I think that sometimes can lose you in the field because you can somewhat be validated by being in charge. Well, you can still contribute a lot just being a team member too. I guess I don't know why we as human beings we think if it's lead or manager it means like we're like better. I don't know.
Right. I definitely hear what you're saying. So, you provide life coaching, and some people might kind of confuse that or mistaken that for...
Well, no, I don't do life coaching. I just do career coaching.
Career coaching, I'm sorry. And some people might mistake that for mentoring. But those two are really not the same, correct?
Actually, sometimes, these people, they become mentees sometimes because, they call and text and they, need help with these type of things. But I would say that I feel like they actually can be one and the same and using the same. I think, when you are coaching, mm-hmm. I think you are providing people sound. I've had mentors that gave me sound, actionable advice and practical advice. Right. I think mentoring to me sometimes is you just maybe nurturing them in different areas that's more personable. Like sometimes when I'm dealing with my younger female clients that are fresh out of school, mm-hmm. My mentoring hat kind of come on when they call me about, I think I actually want to move, or I think I want to move out, or I think I want to quit this job because I'm being, something basically is not happening, or maybe there's a relationship problem with a man. I feel like, me as a woman, I can mentor them in those personal areas, but right. Coaching is just saying, this is the blueprint, this is what it is. These are like if you're on a basketball team, your coach is going to give you some plays. You're supposed to go out on that court and execute those plays according to his instructions, where mentoring could be more personable because sometimes people are young and they're fresh out of school, so they're dealing with all of these normal life distractions.
Right. Definitely understand. So let's talk a little bit. Let's really get into the depth of this topic: women in tech, how to get the position and pay you deserve, and let's talk, kind of through the process. So, just coming from if you can give us kind of the perspective from a woman's side of things, how do you go about as a woman determining a woman's salary for a specific position? Like, what are some of the steps that you take to say, hey, look, like, you're in this position, you should be making this amount?
Well, that's a great question. Years ago, I found out about this website called Glassdoor.com.
Okay.
And it actually gives you like the low, high, and it gives you the low, medium, and high salaries for your city. So it tells you based off of the years of experience and based off of the demographic of the city that you live in, what you should be getting paid. So what I would do is when recruiters would reach out to me and I knew that I had X amount of years of experience, I knew I was in the D.C. market and I was, focused on Scrum Master roles or project management roles, I used a lot of my knowledge and information by comparing what other competitors, like other companies were comparing. Like, say I'm working for Deloitte, I'm going to look and make sure that if Booz Allen Hamilton or PwC or these other Big Four consulting firms reach out to me, I want to make sure that I'm doing comparables to the same type of business size of the companies that's coming out to me, coming to reach out to me. And number two, I'm pretty much measuring my years of experience, and based off of, like I said, the city that I live in. Once I started to do that, I really never had an issue with salary, and sometimes I actually got more than what I asked for sometimes because I provided them a really good resume that kind of made it feel like, okay, yeah, you got 10 years plus of experience, you do deserve 150. So I think that's important, is to do your research and don't take the first thing that they give you.
Got you. And how do you go about evaluating a person's experience and skill to determine like what they should be paid? So, for instance, resume A could have these set of skills, and resume B could have the same set of skills, but maybe resume A, maybe they're embellishing a little bit. Like, and how do you how do you come to the determination like, hey, like you don't really, your skill sets on paper say this, but they don't really match up and kind of like, what's that process like?
So that process is, really evaluating and talking to the professional and really asking them what are their day-to-day responsibilities. And a lot of times the people that I feel like that really are not embellishing are the people that really know their resume. They don't have to look at it. They don't have to read it. They can tell. I tell people, my coaching sessions, that your resume is just like telling a story. You've worked at these 3-4 different places. It's the same thing if I ask you what you did over the weekend. You should be able to tell me specifically what you have been doing for that last couple of years at that position. I gauge pay, me have been a manager, I gauge pay off of not just technical skills, but also I also think pay should be also driven upon, how well are your writing skills, how well are your communication and presentation skills, your ability to lead, your ability to be analytical, like to analyze data and information and to problem solve. Because in tech, I feel like there are people they're like two types of people. You got your like core techies, developers, and then you have like somewhat like a hybrid like me who can communicate effectively with the system admin and the database administrator and the developers, but I am more so the person that's going to be sitting at the table with the customer, with the product owner. I'm going to be making some really, really business decisions with them, and I feel like that's where women in tech and black women can actually, if they get into those type of positions. See, when you're a developer, they want to just put you off in the cubicle, and there's no visibility there. But if you're trying to like get up into the tech industry and you're trying to sit at the table with the white men and the Asian men, you're going to have to start to develop more leadership and more cross-functional skills, and that's how your pay goes up.
So are you giving these people tests, like, or is it just you kind of talk through about what they know to try to get a good gauge of their skill set?
Yeah, we talk about what they know. A lot of times these people are going through resume revamps, and in order to like validate, sometimes of course you have to embellish to a certain degree, but I think it's really important to make sure that your resume A and resume B has to somewhat align with what the requirements are from the employer. And I think people that actually get more pay than, if resume A stands out a little bit more. I think it's based upon how things are written and said from, like, just using words like, when I write resumes, I try to use words like, executed, implemented, managed, led, right. Because I think sometimes when you look at certain resumes and you feel like they just did the bare minimum to keep their job, they didn't go beyond the scope of their responsibilities. Those are the people that just get the pay that is pretty much, as is, and they're not, that employer may not be looking to give you more money. I would tell resume B, like, in order to get more money, you're going to have to step it up a notch. You can't just keep going every day and just sitting at, your desk and you're just doing the bare minimum, and you're not exceeding the expectations of the opportunity that you have for that job.
Gotcha. Yeah, I always like to tell people to be, qualitative and quantitative in their resumes. Like, it's not enough to just say you've done something, but how well did you do it, right? Like, people can't determine that just by, saying, administered Windows computers. Like, yeah, but did you do it badly, or or were you pretty good at it? And and on top of that, you quantify that, like, saying that you
how many computers was it?
Yeah, those
are
full
time,
Exactly. Right. Like, you have to, I tell people all the time, like, you have to provide numbers and metrics to kind of the things that you did, because if you worked at a place that only had one server, right? That's not
right.
It's not nearly as appealing as administering an AWS environment with like 1,000 servers. Like, this is totally different things, and so you have to quantify that in your resume. So those are like two of the biggest things. Like, when I look at someone's resume, and I get some here and there, and from members of the big community, the first things that I do is I go through the resume and I say, hey, like, I don't know how well you did this job, and I don't know, like, the scope of, what you did. Like, that, it just doesn't tell me. And even there's a program called Perscolas, right, where they take people who are interested in getting into tech, entry-level tech jobs, and a lot of them haven't been at tech jobs before, right? So they have resumes that where they have jobs that are not tech related, right? So they may be like a sales associate or something like that. But I tell them still, like, there's ways that you can, even quantify what you did there. Like, if you say that you led a team, right? Like, how big was the team? Like, what did you do to lead them, and what did that lead to? Did you save the company money by implementing ideas? And if you did, how much? What percentage? Were you able to be more efficient? If you were, what's the percentage? How much more efficient were you? So I try to tell people, things like that to try to, help them, look at their resume and actually go back and think about, these numbers and how they can add these numbers and these metrics and things to their resume.
Yeah, I do that a lot too, because that's the biggest struggle coming out of college. If you haven't had a lot of professional experience, when I have to rewrite resumes or coach them into rewriting their resumes, I try to make every little thing sound tech driven. So it could be like you was basically just you may have just been managing and putting records within a database, but just saying that you were actually utilizing an automated database to keep up with record keeping, that's still somewhat computers centric.
Right.
You may have just been developing presentations, or you may have just developed some reports, utilizing some software tools, whether it's Microsoft Office or maybe it was a whole other internal database. Just saying database or application or software, it really helps, because people seem like, oh, okay, you were doing somewhat. You may have just been an administrative assistant, but you were doing some tech-type stuff.
Right. So, and let's talk about, women in tech specifically, and kind of some of the things that you've, some of the things that you've coached women on specifically in order to be able to get them the position and pay they deserve. Like, what are some of the challenges when it comes to women and coaching women and like getting the position and pay?
For me, I'm gonna answer that in two parts. So okay. I want to just share a little bit of my bad experiences being a woman, because everything about my career hasn't been just like, oh, I've just been fabulous and I've just done all these great things and I didn't have any challenges.
Right.
I mean, my personal challenge, and because I use my personal challenges as a way to, however way I overcame, I try to share it with my female clients in tech. My personal challenges overall within my career has been, getting the respect that I deserve, meaning like just respect on the job, being able to present my ideas and being able to get my opinions and my knowledge out there when I'm on a team with primarily men. So I had to learn at a young age how not to wear my feelings on my sleeve because I was a very sensitive person, and I had to learn how to just boss up. You know what I mean? Because they're not going to respect you if you are weak. I don't care if you're black, I don't care if you're Asian, I don't care if you whatever. You're not going to get respected in that industry because it's a male-dominated industry, and feelings don't matter. If you're knowledgeable about, you kind of somewhat have to be a pit bull in a skirt, because in order to get that level of respect and for people to value you, you got to be able to not catch an attitude and always be so sensitive. Some of the other things that I experienced, sometimes when you're a woman, you get in positions where you have to take the blame for things that you really didn't do, but because you're reporting to a male or a white male, it's kind of like you get blamed for things because you don't. Somewhat, in some regards, women within this field don't have a voice. We're not really encouraged to speak up. You know what I mean? And say, no, this is wrong, or no, this is right. There were times that I was instructed to do immoral things with contracts and money, and I stepped up and said, no, I don't want to do that, and then you somewhat get blacklisted because you're saying morally this doesn't make sense for me to do, but because you want me to do it and you're my white male manager, I have to do it. So those are some of the things that I experienced earlier within my career that kind of was very frustrating. Right. So to answer the second part of your question, there's a lot of women that do come to me with the same problems. Some of the problems that I coach them through is focusing on getting visibility, being able the art of networking, being able to understand how to play the game. So I just think you should, I coach them to tell them to do really well, do good, take on the challenges, step up and ask for details and new responsibilities, and that's how you get that level of respect. Don't sit in the back of the room, sit at the table. So when I go in conference rooms, I'm not sitting with the chair up against the wall in the back. I'm making sure I get there a little bit earlier so I can command the room with my presence, and I'm sitting at the conference room table.
And what do you say to people that, and I know, because I'm asking this because I know that there's a ideal situation and then there's reality, right? And there are a lot of people that want to they want to kind of dwell in the ideal situation and not in the reality of things, right? So they might say but women shouldn't have to do that. Meaning
they shouldn't have to actually go around all these workarounds and hurdles and to actually be respected.
Right. Women shouldn't have. No. I mean, yeah, but that's that's. I see that, and that's not just from women. I see that on a lot of different levels. But since we're specifically talking about women, that's why I'm addressing it, or from the perspective of women, because I see that, and it's for me, it's that would be ideal. but we don't deal in that an ideal. We deal in the realism of things. Is that the approach that you take as well?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very realistic about, also understanding and knowing your environment and culture. I'm not saying, be a woman of color or a woman in general and just, take over situations and just kind of be insubordinate and inappropriate. I just think every play has to be strategic, and I think it's sad that it is this way. You may feel like, hey, I want to come on and I want to lead a project, and they want you to just take notes, because you're the female on the team. You got to take notes, and I think that goes back to, and you're a man, you have, family members that are females. I think we have to get to a place that even within the workplace that we have to be a little bit more sensitive towards, roles and responsibilities when it comes to, the man versus the woman. And I think that, you shouldn't have to do these things, but that is pretty much what it is. And I even think when you're a woman of color, I think you're looked at as like the secretary on a team, or you're not, they trying to dumb you down and give you tasks. And you may have a master's degree, and you may have a lot of experience. I just think you have to get into a place where you have the support of leadership that doesn't see gender. And I think that's who sets the tone for the team and the environment is leadership.
Got you. So kind of, once you both, you and the person that you're coaching, once you kind of determine, what a person's salary is, you evaluate their skills. Kind of, what's the coaching piece look like? Like, how do you proceed coaching someone, and women in particular? Let's focus on that. How do you proceed to coach a woman on asking what they feel they are worth?
That's a great question. That particular process is to kind of focusing on what they're making at that time, doing research on the opportunity and seeing what's presented to them. So if they are presented an opportunity and they somewhat feel like they're being lowballed, I think it's just important for, when they go back and do the counter offer. I also teach my clients to evaluate not just salary but benefits. I think we spend too much time always just focusing on the salary number, and we don't focus on maybe you're getting less PTO or more PTO. Maybe you're getting, X amount of education budget per year to go to training. If some of those things that you're leaving behind and you're going into a new opportunity and you're getting way more perks, then sometimes salary isn't always what we're negotiating. We're now negotiating other opportunities for you to get benefits package, 401k, maybe more percentage of matching. So I try to tell them to make a list of all of their benefits that they have now and make another, draw a line on a paper and then make another list of the benefits that they're getting offered from the new company that they may be getting an offer from. And then at the bottom, we have a line for salary. We definitely want to make more than what we're making, but sometimes for me, it's also encouraged to take lateral moves as well, because some people may want to say, hey, I'm teleworking 4 days a week now, and I don't have to sit in traffic, or I'm not traveling 2 hours a day to work. So I just think, when negotiation comes about, I just think as a person, and when they're talking about their individual goals, that negotiation is an individual decision based on different things.
Gotcha. And how do you coach? What's your approach like for, let's just say, different personalities? Let's introverts to extroverts, because I know I know I've come across people who are more introverted, and those are the type of people that they may not feel they do as well in interviews. Like for me, I'm more of an extroverted person. I think that coupled with my experience in tech,
it helps you probably easily to get a job.
Oh yeah, and and that also coupled with the fact that now I'm a lot more comfortable in my own skin and more comfortable with my knowledge and things like that. Like I walk into a job almost like you need to give me this job. Instead of going into it like, please give me this job, right? It's more like, you need to give me this job. So that's
a great point. That's an awesome point, and you made a very good point, because personality sometimes does indicate to some employers whether that's someone that they want or don't want. So introvert versus extrovert, I think it's position driven too, right? I think that there are some really, really great tech rock stars that are introverts that some companies are saying that's the right culture fit, and that's the type of person that I want on my team, someone that's going to come to work every day, do exactly what I tell them to do. They're going to be quiet, but they're a high performer. I don't think that we should associate, high performance with people that don't really talk a lot. Because in tech, we know there's some people that don't talk at all, but they are super smart.
Right.
I think what I coach my clients to do is to evaluate reading up on the culture of the company. So, like, for instance, like when I'm in the job market and I'm looking for a non-traditional white-collar job, so I've interviewed with some startups, and then I've interviewed with companies like Deloitte, then I've interviewed with federal agencies. You know what? They all have its own different culture that will kind of define with that going back to that self-awareness. Right now, me, I want a job where I can go in jeans and some sneakers and a T-shirt, or I can go casually dressed, but I feel like I'm around a lot of smart people. That's kind of what I want right now, because I've done the whole dressing up thing and the whole traditional thing. I think that helps you identify with your personality, too. So I try to tell them, hey, what type of environment do you want to work in? Because some people say, I'm tired of wearing a shirt and tie and shoes and suits every day, because you're in the Big Four consulting companies. That's the way you're supposed to dress. So I think identifying personality fit with the right culture. Like, I want to go somewhere where we can, like, go and have happy hour on the rooftop of our building because it's so cool, and I could ride my bike to work and nobody's going to judge me. Like, that's kind of like where I'm at right now in my career. I think that's so important to identify with that and try to find that right fit based off of your personality.
Gotcha.
Another thing that I do coach people to do is, I don't know if you do this or have done this, I always look at the colors on the staff page. Like some companies is like no color there, right? That tells me a lot. When I go to a page, the About page or the staff page, and I see that there's like no black women, or there's very few brothers on the page,
right,
that sends me a clear indication of what I may be getting myself into.
Interesting. No, I actually haven't told anyone that, but that's a great point. That's a great point.
I mean, I do it, because I've had to be around so many different types of environments, and I know that you can feel isolated, you have to be in tune with yourself to know, are you really confident to walk in an organization where you are, like, it's only you and one other black person, or are you comfortable with being, I like rainbow companies where everybody's included, so when I go to their websites and I see, like, wow, they have all these different people there of all colors, that gets me excited.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, for myself personally, I've done that, but I've actually never said to anyone, like, hey, have you checked out their website and looked at their About page and looked at, people working there? Have you looked at their employees and would you be comfortable in taking a position where you might be the only, black woman at that company? Mm-hmm. But that's definitely a great point and something that, that I'll take into consideration and start saying to people.
I think what bothers me, I've seen this online a lot. How can you have diversity and inclusion if you're really not really doing inclusion? I mean, these companies are pushing diversity and talking about they're doing diversity, but when you go to their pages, there's still no inclusion of, like, multiple different types of races or just women of color. So even when I look at the leadership, I even look at the leadership levels, at the VP levels and the director levels. If I don't see one brother or sister, that means that probably the chances of me getting promoted at that level is slim to none.
Yeah.
Because and if you're a principal, in the Deloitte type world, or if you're a VP or a director, if all of the brothers and sisters are just like software developers or system admins, or they're a staff assistant, then that tells me that, you know what? If everybody's white on the on the leadership level, then what does that say? They didn't even want diversity on the leadership level, so why would I consider that? If I'm trying to make, because we basically talk about how to get the pay you deserve, and in order to get the pay that you deserve, you kind of got to move up.
Right. Right. So going back to that, like there's this there's something in the tech industry about women and kind of how they evaluate whether or not they're qualified for a specific job. And I don't know the exact numbers, but when it comes to like a job description, women are more prone to try to match every single requirement there is compared to men that maybe matches only, I don't know what it's like maybe 60% or something like that. And maybe you have the numbers. Maybe you know more about the numbers than I do, but what do you say to women? How do you kind of coach them out of that frame of mind, or that, hey, a requirement, a job, when you look at a job description, the requirements that are there are to me, at least, kind of how I think about it, it's more of a wish list and not really, it's not, set in stone that you have to have this, or this. How do you coach women into saying, just opening themselves up to applying for jobs where they don't match every single requirement?
That's a great question. My personal opinion about job descriptions is that sometimes they're written and they're full of fluff, and they're just like somebody from HR just put this together. They're really, they kind of worked a little bit with the hiring manager to get the requirements. I tell people a lot of the things that you may not know on the wish list, you can learn. Don't feel intimidated by the things that you don't know. Yeah. I think that some employers are looking for people that are willing to be open-minded and to learn. If you have 60 to 70% of the things there, maybe 2 or 3 of the things you don't have, if you can sell yourself enough on an interview, there were a lot of responsibilities that I learned on the job that I never had on my resume that was in, previous job descriptions. Don't feel intimidated by those things. Be sure of yourself that you can tell a story of the things that you did at your previous or current position and make it very relatable to, a good percentage of the things that you are trying to do with the new job that you're interviewing for. But always keep in mind that you're going to always learn new things, new skills, and be given new responsibility. And don't be afraid of those things. And perfection it just doesn't exist. It doesn't.
I like that. Perfection doesn't exist. That's so.
It doesn't. I mean, it doesn't. And I think us as women, I think we feel like we get scared on the workplace when we feel like we don't know or we can't do a task. But I feel like men get a pass in that area.
Yeah. I mean, I can definitely attest to that. It's almost, and it really, it depends on the company as well, and the culture of the company. I'm fortunate to work in a company where we have a lot of, at least from a gender standpoint, a lot of diversity from that standpoint. We have a lot of teams led by women. Our CEO is a woman. Our general manager is a woman.
That's great.
That's great, and that helps as far as, I guess, from a perception standpoint of hey, this is, an equal, I wouldn't say equal play, but it's more like the perception of, hey, that women can do this. And for me, I always go into a situation where I like to learn from everybody. It doesn't matter who you are. And so I almost go into, I go into situations where my mindset is, you know more than me. So teach me. I'm learning from you right now. No matter who you are, it's like you're smarter than me. So I want to learn from what you know, right?
And make those people like an ally, make them somebody that you feel like, you build a relationship with people and people, because I'm okay with saying I don't know. And I think that that's just me just being authentic, and I know how to say I don't know in a way that I'm asking a question with coming up with some sense of background information. I'm not just saying, hey, I don't know, can you help me? Over here, help me. I'm just saying, I might just say based on my knowledge and my research, I went through the document repository, and I saw there were a couple of folders there, but I really didn't see the folder that you specifically, instead of just saying, where's the file? You basically are saying you already somewhat did your, level of research. I think we as African Americans and even as women, we have to go into the mindset of saying we've already pre-looked into this. We don't understand or we don't know, and we have to just be okay with that. And also, to go back to your original question about things that you don't know on job descriptions, one of the things that I really instruct my clients to do is before you go on a job interview, if you can take a quick Udemy video or do a quick YouTube video, you can at least have some basic knowledge of what that requirement is, or software or technology or tool is. Because I just know in interviews, if you can somewhat basically speak to it a little bit,
right,
you can say you have, somewhat of a broad level of knowledge of it, but you may say, like for me, I haven't really done a whole lot of Salesforce work, but I have been taking some Salesforce classes on Udemy, and I'm planning to get my administrative certification. That's how I talk on my interviews. I may haven't done a Salesforce project, but at least they know that I'm going in the right direction to expand my knowledge in that area.
Right. You're taking what could be perceived as a negative, and you're turning that into
exactly.
So
and you know what they like? They geeked out about it because they're like, oh, she's self-assertive. She's a starter. She's a self-starter. We don't maybe have to just always hold her hand. At least we know that she reads. I read 2 tech books a month. I read tech blogs. I get on tech podcasts. So at least they know that I'm somebody that is just not a slouch and I don't know, and I'm just going to stay over there and just not know.
Definitely. I always tell people about early on in my career when I moved from doing just help desk tech support work into getting my first admin job. And I tell people that when I went into the interview, I always tell people, especially when they're getting into tech, set up some type of home lab of some sorts, right? At least for one, to constantly hone your craft, right? That's one reason. But the other reason is that's a talking point going into an interview, because I tell people that's how I got my first sysadmin job. Between me and someone else, they chose me simply because I mentioned that I had a home lab, and I wasn't the type that, hey, I go home and I don't want to touch tech and I just kick off my shoes and I don't want to.
Right.
They were like, we seen the passion in the fact that you have a home lab and that you're willing to go, outside of work and continue to hone your craft, and that's why we chose you.
Wow, that's an excellent point. I actually coach people, I was telling somebody that came to my office last week about AWS. You can have a free training environment. You can set up your own AWS environment, straight through Amazon. They have, and it's just amazing because these people can pretty much go through all these different lab exercises to get, acclimated to understanding AWS. And, this guy, he was blown away. He's a Oracle, and he was graduating with his associate's degree, SQL Server and Oracle. He wants to be an admin in that. But I told him, when they come to the coaching sessions, what I try to do is for my tech professionals, I try to always let them know what's going on in the cutting edge. So even though you may went to school to be a database administrator, you're going to have to learn cloud. You can't get away from it.
Nope.
So we talked about that. He was excited. I showed him Udemy and, some of the online courses and things that he could take. Because you don't want to go in the mindset that everything you did in school, that's all you're going to do, because that's not how the real tech world really works. Right. It's just a foundation to get you, you're going to be put in a lot of challenging tech situations where you're not going to know everything, but you just need to stay ahead of the curve. How do you feel? I guess my question to you is, you said that at your position there are a lot of women leaders. What is the difference between working with a woman leader versus a male leader?
What's the difference? Huh?
Like far as like their characteristics, how they lead projects, how they lead teams, how they communicate.
So, let me. I think because this is kind of more embedded in our environment. I don't see that much of a difference. It's almost there's a really smooth transition between having let me say this. I would say this. There is. I actually happen to be on teams where the project manager happens to be a man, happens to be a man of color, and happens to be a woman, and not a woman of color, but just a woman. And so the woman and the man of color were actually, to me, they were a bit more detailed. At least it seemed to me. They were a bit more, and that's not in a bad way. It seems like they were more detailed and more prepared, so to speak.
You talking about the people of color?
No, so specifically the woman who was a project manager and like the man of color who was a project manager on one of our projects. It just seemed like they were just a little bit more detail oriented than anybody else.
You know why I think that is so? I think that because I've been a project manager for a while now on multiple different projects. Mm-hmm. I think that it just subconsciously you feel like when you are leading projects and you are a minority, you feel like you have to be detailed and clear and concise and unambiguous and give factual and accurate information, right? Because it seems like you feel like if you don't, then they're going to be looking at you somewhat sideways. But then I would see a lot of white female project managers that were my peers. Say I'm leading the implementation team, and then I have I have the content team over there. I was doing a content migration project. Mm-hmm. She could be on the phone and she could be stumbling, not giving accurate information, asking a lot of questions, and people wasn't looking at the project, looking at her sideways. But then every time I came to my meetings or my notes or just anything I had to document, I made sure that I was on point, and any question that they needed to answer at the scrums or at the staff meetings, I made sure that I provided them a lot of information. I think subconsciously I just wanted to let them know, I'm the real deal. She's kind of average, but I'm not average. And I think, I don't know if it's a mindset. I don't know if it's a mindset in us as black people that we feel like we have to be like that. Those of us that want to be successful.
Right. And I'm not, 100% sure on why that is. It's just something, like I said, I've noticed. It just, the engagement is a little bit different, when it comes to, dealing with either a woman or either dealing with a person of color. It just seems like the engagement was a little bit different on that level.
Yeah, there's a lot of studies that show, the difference between a male leader versus a female leader, and, just the different characteristics. I think overall women, no matter what color they are, nurturing, sometimes, very structured, very organized, and very detail-oriented, just because I think that's just a woman's nature a little bit, or we are, easily to overtalk or be more communicative. I think that's just something, this is a woman's characteristic in some regards.
Gotcha. Okay, so we have a couple more questions before we get out of here. If you had to share only 3 career coaching tips, what would they be?
Three. Only three. That's a good one. Because I have like a lot. But
just three come to mind. Yeah.
Yeah. So a few that comes to mind is the first one would probably be to really out the gate. Like I'm doing a blog post for Glassdoor about right now about success secrets for the average college graduate. Mm-hmm. And some of the things that I shared in there was, pretty much focused in on, I think when you come out of college, you just really don't even know what you're getting yourself into with developing your career brand. You're just like happy that you're graduating, but you really don't really know how to go out there and brand market and sell yourself. So one of my tips that I was providing in this most recent post is, I would say for resumes, make sure that you bleed technical skills and technologies all through your resume, because that's basically how you're easily searchable and findable on the job board sites. That's like the first step of branding yourself. You got to put your resume up on the job board sites, and you're expecting hits and people to reach out to you based off of these keywords and these skills, and making your LinkedIn profile and your Indeed profile, beef it up, make it meaty, make it look like you are that dude or that girl they should hire. Because without that, people don't know that you exist in the world if you're not online.
Right.
The second tip I would say is when you're out the gate, trying to actually focus in on aligning, finding that first position for that first professional position. Going back to what you were saying earlier about focusing on, your sales associate's job or retail jobs. I think it's just so important to always be very strategic in identifying organizations that's going to align with your education and your career desires. I don't think it does you good service to just take a job that's totally like far-fetched, because you're building a very inconsistent brand when you do that, when you're not saying, hey, I need to be focusing on finding an organization where I can put my system administrative skills to work or my development skills to work. I think that's so important in the beginning of your career to do.
Okay, that's right.
And then the third one I would say is to be very intentional about making recruiters and diversity inclusion managers on LinkedIn your best friends. One of my big tips with LinkedIn is that I encourage my clients to develop an introduction message that basically they could actually DM. If you want to work at Microsoft, or you want to work at Google, if you want to work at a small tech company, and even if you're a female, reach out to the recruiters in your just go and search by Microsoft recruiters and look in your area, and also search on LinkedIn by diversity inclusion, because us as minorities, if you're able to create that introduction message and you're able to introduce yourself and introduce your interest in the company, and you are a woman of color and you have a great resume to send them, that opens up opportunities for them to kind of get you a foot in the door into those tech companies that you desire to get into, because that's their job.
Nice. That's a really good tip. It's one that I've never heard before. That's great. Excellent.
Yeah, so that's what I do. Like Capital One has reached out to me, diversity inclusion, and I mean when they call me, they're like, "Hey, we're looking for some brown people." You know what I mean? That's what they do. So if you're really trying to get into these big tech companies and you know that it's very difficult, those people, the recruiters and the diversity inclusion managers, they'll help you out a lot.
Very nice, very nice. Real quick, let's tell us a little bit about your book and what inspired you to write it.
So my book was written when I was like 28 years old. I was at a crossroads trying to find myself as a black female in the federal government space, and I was just losing myself. I was just, making six figures. I was just basically, married, got a house, got material things, but I was just unhappy. So I wrote the book called Life Rehab, Don't Overdose on Pain, People, and Power. I was overdosing on past situations in my life that happened, and I wasn't letting that go. I was overdosing on friendships and relationships that came to an end. I didn't understand why. People that hurt me, family members, and I just was just like letting it stop me from, moving forward and forgiving. And then power was, as African Americans, sometimes we could get really, really like into cars and money and this job and that person, this name brand stuff and job titles, and we just allowed that to validate us. And I was just saying, you know what? I'm going to really, really be my true, authentic self. I'm not going to allow all these things to, make me who I am. And that's kind of how the book came about. So I talk about career, personal experiences and bad career experiences in the book.
Excellent. And where can people purchase that book at? Like, is it online?
It's on Amazon. Yep, on Amazon. I'm actually going to be, start selling some more physical copy books through KanikaTolver.com. So they can go to KanikaTolver.com, or you can go on Amazon and you can just put Life Rehab, and you can purchase the Kindle version and the ebook version, and the physical copy is on there.
Excellent. And what's next for you in your career and things that you're doing?
That's a good question. I want to do another book. So something's in the works with that. It's going to be focused around career, focused book. It's a great title, great topic. It's something that we're kind of like shopping around now for a book deal. So it's just taking its course. The next thing that I'm going to be focused on is branching out and doing more tech talks. So I have a tech talk that I'm doing in September at a conference, digital transformation through Agile and DevOps is the topic. They selected me. So be doing more tech talks. And
what conference is that?
It's the conference called the Fusion Conference. It's in St. Louis. So I'm actually going to be submitting myself to the digital summit in DC. They have a big conference in a lot of different cities. So what's going to be next for me is focusing on doing more strategic tech talks around my expertise, and also doing more probably some TED talks around like non-traditional rebel style career coaching type talks.
Nice. Yeah, definitely keep us informed about that. I'd love to share those talks and share that with the big community. One of the things that we love to see is when Black men and women are speaking at conferences and getting their name out there and getting that visibility. And I always like to shed light on people that are doing that. So just keep us informed.
Because it's kind of hard, to be honest with you. It's really hard to get I've been working on some abstracts. But when I go to tech conferences, I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel like there's not that many of us that are giving keynote speaking or even on panels, and it frustrates me because I'm so enthusiastic about going to these conferences. But when I look at when you go and buy your ticket and you say who's speaking, it's like, dang, it's like one of us on there. So that's going to be one of my things is this 2018 is to try to do like 3 to 5 big tech conferences. And I'm just excited about it because I'm only going to focus on the things that I know. I'm not going to talk about stuff that I never did, and I'm going to bring real life case studies from my past government IT experience. So I'll probably be doing more work with the government as well. But I got a lot of things going on that I'm trying to do.
Excellent.
I'm thinking about a podcast, but I don't know if I have the time.
Yeah, podcasts can be pretty time consuming. Podcasts are fun. Like when I started doing podcasts, I didn't know like what was going to become of it, and I didn't think that. I shouldn't say I didn't think. I didn't know how people would take to it, especially being that it was, focused on Black people in tech. All I know is that I wanted to give the, people that type of visibility and provide a platform for people's stories to be heard. And I mean, it's just it's great, and I think more Black men and women should create podcasts, and it's
I see a lot. I've been noticing that a lot of people are doing it. At first, I really wasn't interested in doing one,
right.
but I've been seeing. I'm actually speaking on a couple of other podcasts. They're somewhat related to women and career and inclusion and stuff like that. So I'll probably be, sharing that with you as well. But I definitely want to talk with you offline about the podcast thing, because how long have you guys been doing the podcast?
So we've been doing a podcast, for a number of years now. I don't even know how long, but I mean we've done over 100 plus episodes.
Wow.
Yeah, and I mean it's just another way for us to create and increase the visibility of the men and women in our community that are doing the great work, right? So that's how I look at it, and as long as people are receptive and and listening, then I'll keep on doing it. This is just another medium. I always like to say, like, the internet is the biggest biggest media platform there is right now, right? So more of us, I think, should be taking more advantage of the internet and putting ourselves out there and getting this content out there. I think it helps that, especially for other people looking to us, for guidance and direction, and looking at us to be more, to represent them. And to be able to see like another person of color doing this thing, I think it helps tremendously. So as long as
you're right.
I see that it's beneficial, I'll keep on doing it.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to be on your show, and I hope that people could take away some great things from
definitely.
the advice that we talked about today, and they could really apply it to their career and get out of the fear zone and just focus on just thinking about whatever they want to do that is not unrealistic. I just think we have to. There's some playbooks out here that it really is a playbook, and in order to really, and I may end up doing a playbook, either ebook or I just think there's some unwritten rules around Blacks in Tech that I just think. We talk about it a lot on these podcasts and on blogs and on this, but I don't think nobody's really gave somebody like these are like the 10, 12 steps of how to maneuver the system.
That's an excellent idea, and even toying around with that title of playbook. I think that would be a great book to have for people to be able to buy and to utilize. So how can, before we jump off of here, how can people get in contact with you if they want to learn more about kind of what you're doing and they want to reach out?
Sure, no problem. You can reach out to me at kanikatolver.com. That's Kanikatolver.com. On Twitter, it's Kanika Tolver. On Facebook, it's Kanika Tolver, and on LinkedIn it's Kanika Tolver. So you can reach me on pretty much every social media outlet. It's just Kanika Tolver.
Excellent. Kanika, I want to thank you for taking time out of your evening and joining us tonight, and wish you the best of luck, and definitely let's keep in touch.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
No problem. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye. And that's it for this episode of the Blacks in Technology Big Tech Talk podcast. I want to thank our guest tonight, Kanika Tolver. Thanks to everyone who listened in on this podcast. If you want to check us out at www.blacksintechnology.net. Also, we're on the Twitters, and that's at Black in Technology, BLKINTECHNOLOGY. We're also on Facebook, on facebook.com/Blacks in Technology. There's also a LinkedIn group under Blacks in Technology and an Instagram page under Blacks in Technology. If you have any suggestions or comments, email them to us at contactus@blacksintechnology.net. And as always, tech yourself before you wreck yourself. Thanks a lot. Good night.
Blacks in Technology.
Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology.